Hello, what is up, travelers? Here's a quick and easy Genshin Impact build guide on how to build your Xianyun. As we all know, Xianyun is our newest Anemo Catalyst character that enables plunging attack playstyles as well as providing healing and extremely high mobility on her elemental skill. So if you don't know how to build her, here's a quick and easy guide just for you. For weapons, as with most 5-star characters that have signature weapons, the Crane's Echoing Call, her signature weapon, is her best in-slot weapon. It provides the highest base attack for her and buffs her plunging attacks, as well as significantly reduces her ER requirements. For alternatives, the Favonius Codex is what I believe to be her best 4-star weapon. It lowers her ER requirements and lowers the entire team's ER requirements, which makes everybody burst a lot quicker, of course. If you don't have the Favonius Codex, you can always go for the Oath-Sworn Eye. Now, this particular 4-star catalyst is an event-exclusive catalyst. I think it was around version 2.5 or 2.6. The Oath-Sworn Eye has an attack percentage main stat, which is great for Xianyun. Also, the passive increases energy recharge by 48% for 10 seconds after using an elemental skill, which also helps her energy recharge issues. If you are completely free to play, the Prototype Amber would be my next suggestion. Although it has an HP main stat, the passive that it provides with energy as well as with healing is pretty useful for Xianyun overall. For artifacts, I believe Xianyun's artifacts is more of a situational thing. It really depends on what her teammate composition is, so I do have different suggestions depending on how the teams are set up. If you're using a Cryo, Electro, Hydro, or Pyro DPS, the Viridescent Venereer is always a good choice. However, if you're running a team with multiple Anemo units, this may be passed off to a different unit so she can use a different set. If you're running a team, for example, with an Anemo DPS like Xiao, since Viridescent Venereer doesn't really buff Xiao's damage at all because he is pure Anemo and doesn't use any elemental swirl reactions, this does not help him at all. So you should opt for a different set. The 4-piece Noblesse Oblige is always a great pick for any support character, unless you have a Bennett, because Bennett wears that and then you have to choose something else. But if you're not using Bennett, or if your Bennett is not using Noblesse Oblige, you can definitely use this for her. The last 4-piece set would be the Song of Days Past. Now this is when all of the options have already been met. For example, if somebody else is using Viridescent, somebody else is using the Noblesse Oblige, then Song of Days Past would be your third option for her. That way the entire team can still benefit on all the bonuses as well as the healing bonus and the additional damage that Song of Days Past can provide. If you're still building your Xianyun, or if there's nothing else to use at the moment, a 2-piece combination of attack percentages like Shiminawa's Reminiscence and Gladiator's Finale, or an Emblem of Severed Fate set can be useful while you're still building the character as well. For artifact main stats, Xianyun relies on attack to benefit from her kit. However, ER is equally important. Having a burst cost of 70 ER, it can be difficult to feed her energy if she's the only Anemo unit. For Sans, you can go for attack percentage or energy recharge. For Goblet, attack percentage if you're using her as a support, or Anemo damage bonus if you're using her as a DPS, although there are some requirements which I'll talk about later. And lastly, for Circlet, attack percentage as well. You can again use her for crit rate, crit damage if you're using her as a DPS, but again, we'll talk about this one later. So I would normally configure my Xianyun with attack percentage Sans, attack percentage Goblet, and attack percentage Circlet, with a Viridescent Venereer with a substat priority of energy recharge first, and then a secondary priority of HP percentage, just to not make her too squishy. For constellations, if you're not going for C6, C2 is her best stopping point, as this increases Xianyun's attack by 20% for 15 seconds, as well as provide an additional charge from her White Clouds at Dawn ability due to the C1 bonus. Now, I talked about the DPS Xianyun earlier. Now, the DPS Xianyun is only accessible if you get her C6, which is pretty broken, to be honest. Her C6 basically allows Xianyun after her burst to use her elemental skill without any cooldown for up to 8 times, which makes it pretty much spammable. And that's the only way you can access her as a DPS, because she's just going to start flying around the entire screen. Now for talents, focus on her burst first, then her elemental skill, and lastly her normal attack. But honestly, you don't really need to level up the normal attack. Even if you're a C6 Xianyun, the normal attack is unnecessary because you'll be spamming her elemental skill anyway, so just focus on the burst and the elemental skill. Alright, now let's talk teams. Now having Xianyun obviously as a plunge attack buffer means that Xiao gets probably the most benefit from her buffs. Now for this particular team, the last two teammates are usually just flex characters, which are going to be buffers for Xiao. Since Xianyun already provides healing, these two characters can be whatever you have that is convenient as a support. So you can use characters like Farina to provide you with additional damage plus hydro application. You can also use Bennett for the usual damage buff that he provides. And if you have a C6 Faruzan, you can also use her to provide the anemo damage buff that's needed to improve Xiao's damage further. If you lack survivability, you can always use Zhongli and even pair it up with an Albedo for some off-field damage. Now for the second team type, it usually has the core of Xianyun, Farina, and Bennett. Basically 3 buffers and 1 main DPS that does all the plunge attack damage. Now Bennett is probably the most suggested character if you're using a Pyro DPS, so you can take advantage of both the Pyro resonance as well as Bennett's buff, especially if you have him at Constellation 6 like I do. So characters like Gaming, Diluc, and Dia are pretty good picks as the DPS character. Although Dia is probably the least I would pick, Gaming and Diluc would be my primary options. They are all great sword users, and the thing with great swords is that they have a really high plunge attack multiplier, which makes them really good for this particular playstyle. You can also use Hu Tao for this particular team because her charge attack jump cancels can be used to this advantage, as the plunge attack multipliers are increased as well as the height. So she can basically do charge attacks and then jump cancel and then plunge back down for an additional damage. Now again, I said this is the primary core of the team, so these characters can be switched depending on what element you're trying to use. So if you already C6'd your Bennett and you need a different element for this, you can definitely swap out Bennett with a different buffing character. You can use a Kazuha for anemo buffs, or you can even use a Shenhe if you're using a cryo character as your plunge attack unit. I strongly suggest to keep Farina because Xianyun and Farina synergizes really well due to the fact that Xianyun's heal pretty much heals everyone, which helps Farina build fanfare stacks. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe. You know the deal. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye!